guys, welcome out to Level Up Your Leadership with me, John Barrett, where I'm going to give you visual leadership lessons to help you get better in all you do. Today, I want to talk about the feedback filter. Listen, in order to be your best, you have to get feedback. I mean, feedback is essential to reach your potential. You will never reach your potential without feedback. Think about this. If you asked me, you said, John, are you a good husband? No, I've got a beautiful wife and I take care of her. I love her. I try to do everything to meet her needs. So if you asked me, John, are you a good husband? I would say, yeah, I'm a pretty good husband. I mean, I'm a good guy. Hey, look at me. But who determines if I'm a good husband? Me? No. My wife does based on her feedback. Am I meeting her needs? Am I taking care of her and doing all those things? That determines that. And now, I've got 4 kiddos. If you said, John, are you a good dad? I'd say, well, I'm a pretty good dad. I love my kids, try to take care of them, try to hang with them and be there for them. But who determines if I'm a good dad? Me? No. My kids do based on their feedback of how I'm doing. How would I ever know how to get better or if I'm doing well or I'm not doing well if I didn't get feedback? Now, if I were to sit down with you and say, are you a great leader? Well, who determines that? Do you? If you were to ask me, John, are you a good leader? I'd say, well, I'm a leadership coach for 20 years, been working with leaders nationally, internationally, and I think I'm a pretty good leader. Yeah, absolutely. But who determines if I'm a good leader? Me? You? No. My team, your team, the people that you're leading, they determine if you're a great leader or not based on their feedback. But how can you ever know how you're doing if you don't get feedback? You can't. Listen, feedback is essential to reach your potential. You can't improve something that you're unaware of. If you're unaware where you're falling short, how are you ever going to get better? You don't even know. You think you're doing great, but you're not. Or vice versa. You may think you're doing really bad, but if you don't have feedback to help you calibrate, you don't know where you're at. So listen, as a leader, not only do you have to provide feedback to others, that's a whole nother lesson, but I want to talk to you today about how do you get feedback and how do you know what to do with it? Because not all feedback is created equal. We get feedback from all different places, sometimes solicited, unsolicited, or that. But you got to understand that, first of all, you need feedback, so you got to have a mechanism to get it, but you've also got to understand how to use it and how to use it for your advantage and improve upon that which you do. So I want to talk to you about this feedback filter. Now, this is kind of a thing that I've come up with over the years on how to get feedback. How do you get that feedback that is super helpful, that really kind of gets to the very heart of what you're doing so that you can get better and improve upon that which you do? Well, you've got to understand that there's a process on how you filter feedback. First of all, make sure that you get it all the time. Listen, let me harp for a minute. Some organizations I work with, they say, we should run a 360-degree feedback around here. And they go through this big and formal plan where everybody's anonymous and giving feedback and that. And listen, that's great. That's good. But listen, if you have to wait to do a big 360-degree feedback, you've waited way too long. You should be asking those around you all the time. Your team, the people around you, those above you, beside you, below you, you should be asking, hey, how am I doing? How am I doing as a leader? Hey, how am I doing as a boss? Hey, how am I doing as someone on your team, a team member? What are some things I can work on? What are some things I'm doing well, I'm not doing well? If you're not asking for that, you're not doing your job as a leader, and you're not going to be as successful as you could. Highly successful people seek out feedback, and they know what to do with it. So first, you got to ask. But when you get it, there's some filters you got to run that through because not all feedback is created equal. You've got to understand how to get the right feedback and how to extract the best. The first question I want you to think about is who? Who gave you the feedback? This is the first filter that you run it through. Who is it that is giving you feedback? Are they people around you that know you, that have a window into the situation and are able to speak into your life? That's very important because listen, we are going to have coaches in our life, people that are there for us, that push us along, that they're behind us, they're for us, not against us. But listen, you're going to have some critics in your life. Those people that just want to tear you down. Listen, the reality is there's always going to be 10% of the people that just don't like you. They don't like what you do. They don't like anything about you. It just happens. Listen, I travel all the time and I speak to audiences, large audiences, and I'm always amazed. 90% of the feedback will be, John was amazing. It was great. 10% of it always, I guarantee you, there'll be feedback that goes, this guy was terrible. This guy was, a hooligan. He didn't have any idea. And I'm going, what? I just want to meet those people sometimes and be like, what did I do? What did I say? But listen, there's always going to be critics. 10% of the people are always going to have something negative to say because they're just negative people. They don't like you. They don't like anything you do, and everything that you do they don't like. So you've got to understand who are the coaches, who are the critics. You got to filter it there. Now, let me say a word of warning about this. Don't think that everybody's a critic. Don't dismiss everyone. There's going to be 10% of the people you just got to take with a grain of salt. You just got to move on from them and keep going. But listen, don't make that so much to where if anybody gives you critical feedback, you just consider them a critic. Well, they don't like me and all that. No. Listen, you need to be able to listen to everyone around you. Yeah, you got to sift through the critics that are just out to hurt you, but you got to understand everybody can be a coach for you. So don't make it so tight that only one or two people can give you feedback and speak into your life. A great leader surrounds themselves with lots of people, and they listen to those around them. They understand there's always going to be critics, but they listen to the majority of the people around them. And I want to encourage you, don't be someone who just dismisses all critical feedback because you just say, well, they don't like me, so I'm not going to listen to them. You get the point, right? The who. The next thing is what. You got to think about what was said. What is the feedback that you're getting? Do they know the situation? Do they have a window into this? Or are there things that maybe they're just not aware of? They don't have the full picture. You need to factor that in, right? Because there are things that are known, and then there are things that are unknown about the feedback that you get. And what I mean by that is this. People that give you feedback, as long as they're people that are not there just to tear you down, you've got to understand, do they know about the situation? Do they have a good window into what's going on, or at least a little bit of a window where they can help see some things that maybe I couldn't see? Or is it totally unknown? These are people that don't have the full picture. They don't understand the situation. They don't have the context of it. And therefore, that feedback, you've got to kind of sift through a little bit and kind of make sure that you don't take things that people say, but they don't really know the full picture of what it is. Does that make sense? So I want you to understand, is it known or unknown? And it may be unknown to you in the sense of maybe it's a blind spot, right? I mean, we've always talked about you can either know your weaknesses. Well, listen, you know what's worse than a weakness? A blind spot. Why? Because you don't even know it's there. In fact, you'll argue that it's not there. Just like in your car, there's a blind spot. You don't ever see it. Weakness is you know, you see, you feel it, others feel it. Blind spots, everybody else knows it, you don't know it. So just because it's not known to you, you still got to make sure that you listen to what is being said, but you do need to factor in, do they have full context of what's going on? Could that change? Now, a little word of caution and warning again, don't dismiss all feedback and say, well, they just don't know. It's all unknown. They don't have the full picture. They don't understand. They don't know me. You don't know me, right? We say all these things. And we can just dismiss everything, just like we do up here. Well, they're just critics, they're just mean, and we dismiss everybody. And then we say, well, they just don't know the full context of the situation, and we dismiss it all. Don't do that. There is a time to filter it through and say, look, they don't know the situation. But you need to understand that you've got to listen to everyone around you and begin to sift through some of these things, okay? The next thing I want you to think about is why. Why is it being said? There's another factor. So who said it? What was said? But why was it said? What's the context behind it? What's the heart behind it? Are people trying to be helpful to you and give you good advice? Or are they doing it from a place of trying to tear you down? So the idea is it constructive feedback or is it destructive feedback? Is this person trying to help me? And truly, I mean, even though it's hard stuff, are they really saying it because they want me to get better? They want things to be better in what we're doing? Or is it just destructive? They're just saying it out of frustration, anger, hurt, bitter, whatever it is, just to tear you down and put you down or whatever it is. You've got to understand that there is constructive feedback and there's destructive. And you got to sift through that. Listen, that's hard, guys, because when you get destructive feedback, it hurts. It's hard. Depending on your personality, some people wear it a little bit more. Some people, it doesn't affect them as much. But everybody doesn't like destructive feedback. Nobody likes that. But you got to understand is why is this person coming at you? And understand it. Even if it's hard feedback, listen, if it's hard feedback and it kind of hurts, it can still be constructive. Because someone is trying to do it from a place of trying to help you get better. They may not understand the full picture and all that, but you got to extract what you can from that. So why is it being said? That's a thought that you got to think about. All right. The next one is how. And what I mean by how is how many times have I heard this feedback again and again, not only from the same source, but from different sources. You need to pay attention to that. Because when you hear something again and again and again, you may need to lean into that a little bit more. It's kind of like that old statement, if Bob has a problem with everybody, Bob might be the problem, right? I mean, it's not everyone else, it's you. So you got to understand, how many times is this happening? You need to be aware of that. How many times is it taking place? Is it consistent or is it random, right? Is it consistent or random? The more consistent feedback that you get of the same thing over and over again, you better really pay attention to it. If it's random and it's just kind of a rando comment that was said to you or that, then you just kind of have to look at that and say, okay, noted, thank you. But I've never really heard that before. That's the first time. So I've got to think about who and what and why was it said and just kind of note it. But if you keep hearing the same feedback again and again, my friend, you better pay attention. Even if it's just a few times, you need to lean into that. Quit kind of making excuses and saying, well, that's just all of them. You need to start looking in the mirror. Great leaders look in the mirror. In fact, go watch my window and mirror principle video and you'll learn about that. But is it consistent or is it random? You don't dismiss it when it's random, but you pay attention a whole lot more when it's consistent, whether it's the same person or somebody else or different sources of feedback. You got to pay attention. Now, here's the deal. You run through who, what, why, how. The last one is now. Now, what do I do with the feedback that was given? You'll never extract the gold if you don't figure out, what do I do with it? It's no good to get feedback and then just dismiss it and just move on and not work on it and figure it out. In fact, here's what I say when you get to the now. You can either grow or you just go. You just dismiss it and you just move on about your life, never think about it again. No. If you want to extract the best from all this feedback, you've got to grow from it. You've got to learn, how do I take that and get better? How do I work on that? What are some things I can challenge myself with so that I can be better with this feedback that I'm getting, especially if it's a little bit critical and things that I need to work on and improve upon? How do I grow? That's what a great leader does. Highly successful people are always looking for ways to grow and get better. Do you know what average people do and unsuccessful people do? They just go. They just drop their head and go about their life. They dismiss everything, think about, oh, you don't know, you don't understand. They just live over here and they just go and they don't extract anything. And therefore, they never improve, they never get better, and they never become successful because they just keep doing the same thing again and again and again, expecting a different result. Hey, insanity, right? The definition. But you know what highly successful people do? They live right here. They surround themselves with coaches. They look at this and they figure out what is known and they help people understand the context so that they can give them good feedback. They make sure it's constructive people around them that want to help them. It's consistent. They lean into that and they grow from it. They do something with the feedback. Guys, if you'll use this feedback filter and you'll start seeking out feedback more and more and more from those around you and not wait for some program or some survey to come out, but just go and get the feedback, you are going to extract the best from yourself. You're going to be the best that you can be as a leader and those around you. Whether it's those below you, beside you, or above you, you're going to be able to lead better in all ways. I hope this was helpful. Go check out johnbarrettleadership.com for all my resources to help you get better as a leader, podcasts, books, videos, all kinds of great resources over there. Check it out, and I hope that you can level up in your leadership.
Reach out to us today so we can help take you and your team to the next level.